I am Stacia Lunders, your host, and whether you're driving your car, doing some chores, or just taking a breather, I am so pumped you're here. Can you believe we're kicking off our very first episode? I am so excited that you guys are here. So, what did you think of that teaser? I hope it gave you a little taste of what's to come. Because this podcast is all about keeping it real. No fluff, no perfect script, just the messy, unfiltered experiences of life. We're here to talk about mindset, growth, challenges, and how we can show up more real in our lives. So, are you ready to dive into today's topic? Let's freaking go. Today, we're talking about something we've all been through. The moment in life when you feel completely stuck, like nothing's working and you feel so discouraged and like you're drowning in this negativity. We'll break down how shifting your focus can totally change the game. And I'll share a story from my childhood that will make you also think about how often we overlook the simplest solutions. Trust me, you're not going to want to miss this. So let's dive in. First, I want to talk about how Mel Robbins, and if you don't know who Mel Robbins is, if you don't know who she is, you guys need to go Google her, go look her up, but she is just an amazing woman, and I learn a lot from her. She's great. Go Google her if you don't know who she is. Anyhow, she was talking about these feelings when we get so discouraged in our lives, and this feeling like we're in this survival mode. And she talks about how our brains tend to focus on all the negative and all the things that just are not working in our lives. And she refers to it, she says that there's this research that's done and refers to it as the spotlight effect. And she says that basically this spotlight effect magnifies the negativity in our lives. So we just magnify the negative in our life. We just focus on it. It's the spotlight that we're focusing on, this negative in our life. And that's all that you see. And when we start focusing on all this negative in our life, it starts impacting our energy and we start feeling exhausted and we just start feeling drained by all the negative that's in our life. So she said, there's a solution to this. And the solution is to add one thing in your life that you love. And when you start doing that, it starts shifting that negative to positive. When you start adding positive, then you start seeing the positive. So essentially, you're shifting that spotlight from looking in all the negative aspects of your life, and you're shifting it to all the positive in your life. So when you stop to think about your life, like be real and think about, what are you focusing on? Are you focusing on the negative or the positive in your life right now? Because often in life, the simplest solutions are so easily overlooked. So let me tell you a story about this moment in life. I was so scared and I felt like I was not going to be able to escape from this moment. I mean, looking back now, it was the simplest solution that completely saved my life. Okay, that might be a little dramatic, but I was 6, so it did save my life. So growing up, we used to go camping in this area in Washington State. And the place that we went camping at, there's this little spot in this river that we used to tube down. And we went up and down this little area hundreds of times. There were little rapids that we would go down. And I mean, as 6, they were pretty decent little rapids. And then you'd hit this little whirlpool. And sometimes you'd get stuck in this little whirlpool. And then after the whirlpool, there's this little tiny waterfall. And then you just kick out. And from what I remember is that basically the river at that point kind of split up into like 2 sections, and there were like basically the faster part of the river and then the slower part of the river. And after this whirlpool, you'd basically kick to the little slower part of the river and it basically floated you right back into shore, and you'd get back onto shore and you'd go off on your merry way and back up to the shoreline and back up to the top of the starting point of the rapids and down. I did it hundreds of times until this one time, somehow, I missed that slower section of the current and I got dragged down into this faster part of the current, okay? So here I am, 6 years old, and I'm a pretty decent swimmer, so we did not wear life jackets or anything. You can judge all you want. I'm not here for that, okay? You do you, but whatever. We had our inner tubes. So I was kicking, swimming as hard as I could to try to get out of this fast current, and it just kept pulling me further and further down the river. And I could just see my sister getting smaller and smaller. So I'm screaming, I'm yelling, and I'm like, help, I can't, I'm swimming away. And my sister's screaming back, and she's just like, Stacia, just put your feet down. And I'm just thinking in my head, like, oh my gosh, like, where does this river end? Where is it going to take me? Like, I'm feeling completely out of control. I don't know what's happening, And my sister just kept screaming, put your feet down. By this time, people are kind of like starting to come down by the water. Like, what's happening? What's going on? Does somebody need help, And I'm just bawling, just trying to swim as fast as I could. I mean, can you imagine this little 6-year-old just bawling her eyes out, just kicking and swimming as hard as she can. And her sister yelling, Stacia, put your feet down. So I finally get the nerve to put my feet down. I just knew I couldn't touch, and I was so scared because I was just going to get taken, my inner tube was going to get taken away from me, and then I was going to be really not okay. But I got the strength, and I put my feet down. And guess what? Yep, I could touch. Now, I mean, I was probably in about shin deep, of water, but I could touch. Simplest solution, I mean, I wipe my tears off and grab my inner tube, and I kind of look around. What are all these people doing here? Like, what the heck, I mean, I get on with my merry day, probably walked right back up to the top of the river, and I probably even challenged myself to see how far down I could go, thinking, hey, look, I can touch. You guys, the simplest solutions are so often overlooked. Have you ever had a moment in life when you just felt completely out of control? Like, you didn't even know what to do. You were so scared. Nothing was working, and all you could do is see that everything you were doing was not working, that spotlight effect. You're putting in all this effort, yet you just can't seem to get where you want to be. What if the solution was right in front of you? But you're so damn focused on everything else that you can't see what is right in front of you. But you're not alone. And here's the things that you can do to shift that thinking. So what are you focusing on in your life right now? How do you want to show up in your life? What do you love to do that makes you happy? What gives you energy that fills your cup? Let's get into 3 things that you can do to help shift your mindset when you feel like all hell has broke loose, and when you feel like that little girl felt who was just completely overlooked the simplest solution. The first thing was practice gratitude. That's one of the first things I try to do is in the morning, practice gratitude. I mean, it can be as simple as just being thankful for the coffee, being thankful for the sunshine, or, I mean, those of you who are in South Dakota this time of year, thankful for the snow, or the fact that I get to learn through my messy experiences in life. It really does shift your focus from what's wrong to what's going right when you just start being grateful. Number 2, movement. Sometimes the best way to reset your body is just by moving. So just go for a walk. Do a quick workout. I mean, if that's your thing, go get a stretch in. You guys, this doesn't have to be like a huge effort, but just moving your body really does help clear your mind, and it gets those negative thoughts out of the way. It breaks that pattern. And the last thing, number 3, self-compassion. This one's a huge one. I remind myself that it's okay to not have it all together. We're gonna fuck things up. But we look in the mirror and we say, you're doing the best you can, and that's enough. Let's say that again. I am doing the best that I can, and that's enough. We tend to be so hard on ourselves, but showing ourselves some love can just make a huge difference. You guys, when you're so excited about life and you're thinking like my little 6-year-old self, when I got so excited to get on that tube and go down that river, life gets a little bumpy when you hit those rapids. It's fun at first and you laugh, but that spotlight starts to shift and you get a little uncomfortable. And then you start going a little further down and you hit that whirlpool and you start twisting and twirling, and now you're almost scared. And life just starts pulling you further and further from what you actually want. You're in that fast current, just focusing on all the negative shit. Just stop. Put your feet down. Yeah, you might still be in a little bit of muddy water. Wipe your tears off. Lift your strong ass self up and start walking towards shore, towards the people who love you, who support you, and who always are cheering you on. Whatever you guys are facing right now, I want you to remember this. Life is not going to be perfect. Okay? We are all just trying to figure it out, but we're doing our best. So as long as you're staying true to yourself, you're staying real, and you keep taking steps forward, then you've already won. Be real with your journey. Be real with your feelings. And most importantly, be real with yourself. You got this. Thank you so much for listening and joining me on this very first episode of Be Real Podcast. I am so excited to share more with you all. If you loved this episode, please take a moment to share it with someone that you guys care about. And don't forget to rate and review this podcast. I'd love to hear from you. Share something positive you're going to spotlight in your life. And what topics or stories would you love to hear on the next coming episodes? Your feedback helps keep this real talk going. Until next time, always be real.